Welcome to the Insurance Producers Podcast, where we bring you the top personalized producers, insurance agents, and industry partners, giving you at least 3 takeaways to 10x your production and build your multi-million-dollar revenue books. So sit back, relax, and become inspired by the success stories and strategies of the world's top insurance minds. Let's roll. Welcome back, everybody. Hey, Cyrus Jaffery. Welcome to Insurance Producers Podcast. We have a special episode for you guys. I think a lot of you guys know this individual, but I'm going to have him speak. Tell us a little bit about him. Matt Naimoli, we've gotten to know each other last probably 6 months or so, and kind of following him and his journey of where he came from and what he's done in the last 5 to 10 years. And man, I'm super excited to learn more about you, Matt. But hey, welcome to the Insurance Producers Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm pumped. When we connected and we talked about putting an episode together, I was really excited, mainly because of what you've done and the brand you're building. The relationships and exposure you have, but also the fact that your podcast isn't like so many others. I think the audience that you're speaking to and the value that your guests are trying to provide are just different, and I love that. I think when someone can be unique, it kind of adds a lot more value to the audience. So I'm pumped to be on, and I'm excited to share a couple tactics and strategies that might be able to help some people.
That's cool. Matt, I appreciate you, man. For people that don't know Matt, which I don't know what world they're living in, but you are more of a reserved guy, I think, from what I kind of have gotten out of this. But yeah, if you don't mind, man, just tell a little bit of background about you, how you got into the insurance industry real quick, 60 seconds, man, and then we'll get rolling. So
yeah, I love that question because so many people get into it unintentionally, and that was certainly my story. So I was playing baseball in college, and I was looking for an internship that was very flexible, 10 hours a week, paid well, sales job, because I just knew that that's something I wanted to kind of head in that direction after college. And Liberty Mutual was offering something up in Williston, Vermont, like close to UVM's campus. And it was a perfect internship. I said, you know what, this will be good sales experience. I started day 2. The manager who had hired me, like the second day, he either let go or retired. I don't know, but he left, and so I was managerless from the day 2 of that internship on. And essentially, not to throw anyone under the bus, but I'm sure that they wouldn't care at this point. Basically, the internship consisted of me either grabbing some coffees for the sales reps or them coming to my baseball games and clocking the hours. So like that was how I got into insurance. I was like, wow, this is insurance. This is definitely a space I want to be in. So after college, I started working for Liberty Mutual, selling insurance in Massachusetts. Zach, my top competitor across the country, he and I started G&N Insurance together back in 2010. And it was mainly a personal line shop. We focused on homeowners buying, and networked with mortgage lenders, realtors, attorneys, and grew the business over the about 9.5 years before selling it to the Hill Group, a PE-backed agency, back in November of 19, which I'm still a part of. So that's as high level as I can get without jumping into bobbleheads, vlogs, or podcasts. But that's my story.
That's awesome. Sometimes that question takes 10 minutes, man. So thank you for giving us a quick turnaround there. But I appreciate you sharing that story, man. I think a lot of us have gone into the insurance industry, just kind of ran into it, and now, I mean, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. To be honest, we're one of the best industries in the world, and for producers listening that are new into it, and if you can make it to that 5-year mark, I mean, I'm telling you, if you just make it to that 5-year mark, I mean, maybe Matt, you want to share on that? Like for me, at least, it was like that 5-year mark, and I have to do it twice because I was with State Farm for 5 years. I'm like, all right, I've made it, and then we left right after. I'm like, now I got to start all over again. But the wisdom that comes from learning that experience from a captive man, I mean, without it, there's no way I'd be where I'm at. So my timeline shrunk to maybe 2.5 years because I had all that experience on the independent channel. So any thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think there's definitely multiple ways to benefit from 4 to 5 years in. One is just typical comp structures will allow for some residuals and renewals that give you the security and the comp that's necessary to feel like you can really fail and not have to worry about putting food on the table. It makes you feel like you can kind of run through walls a little bit safer. I also think that the skills you learn in those first 4 to 5 years in terms of like expanding your network and how to create value for others to drive business your way is something that you can continue to benefit from, whether you just are a career producer or you launch into entrepreneurship yourself or you move into a different industry and sell tools, gadgets, widgets, or product. I think the lessons you learn in building a business, especially a referral network within a niche in insurance, if you can do that successfully, you can do pretty much anything because it's such a wide-ranging industry, such a huge industry. To be good at that one thing, it takes a lot of talent, skill, and effort. So yeah, I'm in full agreement. I think you can last 4 to 5 years, um, and really sharpen your teeth. You get pretty much like own your future moving forward.
100%. 100%. I think 5 year mark is definitely a good mark. So, okay. So Matt, 2010 came around, man, started the insurance industry with a partner. Obviously you guys had a ton of success, on the personal line side. And, I want to go deep into that, man. Like, first of all, why personal lines, and how did you build some of those relationships and things like that to be able to, I'm curious on like, why'd you pick personal lines? First of all, what was the trigger point? Maybe is just something that nobody was doing or something like that. And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so you bring up a good point, and I think it's one of the things I thought we could just chat briefly about was like identifying your niche, and then like how to actually make headway towards that. Because I think a lot of people talk about the importance of having a niche, the expertise and the credibility and all that stuff, but actually identifying what that niche should be, why, and then how to actually effectively grow and scale within that niche is something that a lot of people don't talk about. And I think I can help sort of add a little bit of context and value
Mm.
there. But to answer your question specifically, we were trained as personal line sales reps. So that was our background. So when we launched an agency, we didn't have large commercial, mid-market, et cetera experience. Now, we considered going in that direction, but we were capable and successful at scaling in personal lines. And if you're writing, 100 policies plus a week after a few years, like, as a team, you don't have a lot of time, effort, bandwidth, capacity, resources to do anything else but that. And why
Mm.
would you? And so I think we always question whether or not we should move laterally. And I think if we had slowed the pace of growth down, we certainly would have, because it would have been just another opportunity to ramp up. But I think within those 9 years, we were able to maintain a good growth rate that sort of mandated complete focus on that niche. Personal lines was definitely like 70% of the business, probably. We did a lot of habitational and bops and,
Mm.
call it like 2 to 50 unit condos and that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. So that would be considered business, but I look at that as sort of vanilla small market. But the niche and the specific area that we had focused on, which a lot of other insurance agents in the last 10 years have had a lot of success in, I know you have as well in your network, is through the home buying experience. And the mortgage lenders, loan officers, realtors, attorneys, financial advisors, people that really support the buyer during that
Hmm.
process. For us, that was just an area where we had identified we had the right markets. We were good enough at it. We actually understood what that process would entail, and we were competitive. We were
Mm.
able to win a lot of business, and so we realized, all right, sales cycle is slow, is quick here. They need us more than we need them in some ways. We can build a network of referral partners that are trusted advisors, and I don't think that that's any different in any other space. So I think if you're a producer listening to this and you're looking at how do I become an expert in a specific field and niche, I would start with that. What markets do I have? Where am I winning already? And not where do I want to win? Where am I winning already? Can I
Mhm.
expand in that space? Is it garage keeper? Is it garages in the region, and whether it be New England or Southeast or wherever? Is it wholesalers? Is it restaurants? Is it what is it that I do well right now that I have the market that can be competitive in and could scale up? Once you've identified that, like you kind of had that crossroads, a cross section of what you're good at, what you're competitive in, what you can scale further, then it's just going one upstream. You know,
Mm.
if it's restaurants, who are the restaurant owners dependent on? Is
Hmm.
it suppliers? Is it a specific vendor? Is it a payroll company? Who is that all the restaurants have to either buy from or leverage their tools, technology, or work with? Once you've identified that sort of chicken, then that's the network that you'd focus on. So for us, the niche was home buyers. Obviously, lenders, realtors, attorneys are their feeder. And so I think that you can apply that to any niche. If
Hmm.
you're someone that owns an auto body shop and that's your niche that you can conquer and you're super competitive in and you can grow in, you figure out who their main suppliers are, who calls on them, who they buy from, and you like become more of that expert. You live in that community. You learn their languages. You learn their pain points, and those are the people you try to build business with. I think that's an area where I think if people focus more one stream up, one notch up to who the chickens are, then and network with them, I think you'd find a lot of success.
Love that. Great. Great point. When we started with State Farm, we were told by our sales leader at the time, like, hey, just buy a bunch of leads, build your book of business, right? So we bought a bunch of auto leads. Like, no, in 2013 is when I was with State Farm, when we got going with State Farm. Like, not a lot of people were doing what you're doing. There's not a ton of them that were focusing on mortgage, especially in Nebraska, at least. Like, there was none that were really focusing on. We were all just calling like the same person that just got a call from 10 other people. Hey, you looking for auto insurance, auto insurance, auto insurance. So we did that for about a year. And then we came back the next year in 2014, 2015. I was like, guys, we can't be doing this, man. This is not the best way to build a book of business. I said, so let's go back and figure out, let's go backwards. So like, who is our kind of, who's our ideal client, right? So I was like, okay, so our ideal client is potentially somebody that's like maybe have a bachelor's degree or something, lives in a house, maybe 2 cars, an umbrella policy, because that was State Farm's ideal client. And we were like, okay, so let's start focusing on like, how do we get those clients? I was like, well, how do you get those clients? Well, the best way to get those clients at that time was I was like, well, there's a lot of mortgage lenders, real estate agents. They're in the car and they're in the, obviously selling homes. I was like, it's the perfect way because it triggers at that time on a home buying process, it triggers a need to get insurance. Because if you think about it, nobody thinks of insurance until like an event happens, buying a house, selling a house, their rates went up like crazy, or they got a car accident, bad claims experience. So it was like a life event, like selling life insurance. I was like, man, this is so much easier to do this way versus going back the other way of cold calling, 40, 50 people and getting F bombs from 10 of them saying, you're the 10th person, stop calling
Mm-hmm.
me. It was just like, I couldn't believe we did that for about a year. We wrote a ton of policies, but how you get your policies, how you lose them,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how you
Those
get
are the
your
same
business.
people that do it next year.
They're
Yeah, it's also classic power dynamic, and I'm not saying in like in a manipulative way. Just it's nice
correct.
to be able to be needed. And if you're in a conversation with a prospective client and they absolutely need what you have to offer, it's a much different sales process. It's quicker.
100%.
It's easier. You close at a higher ratio. You get more policies per client. You get more better retention, and you get more referrals. And I think it applies to anything. I mean, you found success obviously in the mortgage driven space, and we did too. But there's a lot of agents out there that have grown significantly in different industries and niches by focusing this on the same strategy, just finding who the feeders can be and becoming embedded in that network.
100%. Yeah. I know a lot of insurance agents that focus on car dealerships. They're like, hey, that's a need. They're buying a car or whatever, and then they obviously multi-line it to the homeowners insurance. Same thing on the business side. A lot of they work with a lot of contractors, developers, and stuff like that. So, completely makes sense. So you guys had some success. So if you could please, refer partners, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
know you had a ton of success with mortgage and real estate, and there's a lot of people that are doing that right now.
Mm-hmm.
What are some success that you had with those people? What are some things that you
Mm-hmm.
did? Because you got a ton of leads, man,
Mm-hmm.
and a ton of premium that you wrote in that market. Can you share 2 or 3 things that really worked
Yeah.
for you of maybe basically gaining trust from those guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've talked about this in the past, but it's been a while since the question was asked, so I'm sure that it's new content for those listening. I think the first year or two, and I don't know if you ran into this too. The first year or two, we won that game in terms of attracting leads and referrals from loan officers and realtors, simply because there weren't as many insurance agents
Hmm.
in the space doing it, and volume. Like we would just go out there and meet with everyone. It wasn't really technical. It wasn't strategic. It was just like we were willing to do as many at bats as necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And if 2 out of the 10 actually started referring us, that's a great return because that's a few referrals a week. You did that every week for 52 weeks. It compounds. But what we learned is that, like, it would be really cool and very beneficial to us if 7 out of the 10 started referring and not 2. So we started over the first couple of years refining our process. And one thing that we absolutely stopped doing was talking about ourselves. And any type of pre-meeting, virtual meeting, in-person meeting, the only time I'd ever talk about us, what we do and why we're important and why we can help them, was if they asked. And the best way I found to get them to ask was to just ask them a ton about their goals. One of our favorite questions were what's working and what's not working. If we sat down with somebody and you were a loan officer, hey, what's working, what's not working? And the beauty of that question is what they tell you is working, you write down and you make sure that you can continue to support that. And what's not working, you figure out, do I have solutions and strategies to help them solve those pain points?
Mm.
Whether it's a process breakdown or lack of capacity and they need to recruit, or they need more leads and they want leads from realtors, or whatever it might be that they tell you
Mm-hmm.
that's not working or that could be done better. That's a trigger. Okay, I'm going to go buy a book specifically on this topic, and I'm just going to mail it to them because
Mm.
that's something that no one else will do. So I think that's where we started to turn the corner in terms of building trust, figuring out what was actually valuable to the potential referral partner and trying to deliver that.
Mm.
Second thing that we did that was really helpful is we became a little bit more process driven
Mm.
around that actual event of having a networking meeting. Most people, they get the yes. Yeah, I'm sure I'll have a coffee with you. I'll have a meeting with you or whatever. And it's just like, oh, that's awesome. Thank God. Now I'm going to go to that meeting and I'm going to have, really productive conversation and hopefully it turns into leads. Even really successful people who network a ton still do it that way. What we determined was if we could treat that networking opportunity just like you treat a renewal process, of like what you do before the renewal, 45 days, what you send out, how you actually, are there voicemail drops, are there email templates, then how do you review the renewal, then what do you send afterwards, like all that stuff that's super documented and tight at a well-run agency. Can we implement that on the networking side?
Mm.
And what it looked like after we sort of refined that was, what do we send them before the meeting? Not just to confirm the meeting, but to set the agenda. So we go into that meeting with some intention and some productivity planned. And a lot of that was, learn about you, learn about us, what goals you may have, what our collective goals can be, and then action items. And that last piece was important, right? This is not just
Mm.
figuring out, how we can add value to each other. It's like, what are we going to do after the meeting? Then we actually had like a design for the actual meeting, like follow that agenda to a T. Take
Mhm.
notes the entire time, ask a ton of really good questions, and only respond once they ask you about you and your process. And most
Mm.
people will always do that if you spend enough time focused on them and genuinely want to know what they have to say. And then after the meeting, that was super important. We'd send a templated email of how we like to be introduced. Super assumptive, but we also in that email ask them, can you please send us the best way you like to be introduced to referral partners and prospective clients? And what it allowed us to do was to give us permission to include our template. This is how we like to be introduced, right? And
Mm.
whether you use a job form or you use an email introduction or whatever, it's coming up with that consistency so that every single meeting that you have, they're going to deliver referrals to you the exact same way as everybody else. And you can build process around that team. So there's a lot more to that, but that was essentially like, what do we do before the meeting? How do we conquer the meeting during it? And then what do we do afterwards to deliver consistency and get that first referral? Once we got the first referral, we'd always, love on the referral partner because that was the behavior we wanted to reinforce, regardless of
Mm.
whether we sold the policy. And so we would get them really custom gifts and stuff like that that would make them, feel very valued. Wasn't about the price; it was about thoughtfulness of the gift and thanking them. So that was essentially what we did to uh, turn 2 out of 10 into 7 out of 10 as referral partners. And it wasn't until 5 years later that we actually started layering, vlogging and social media to maintain brand and keep top of mind awareness with a huge, vast network of referral partners. For a number of years, it was just one at a time, and making sure we are as effective as possible with them.
Hmm. Two things on that. You said real estate agents like to talk about themselves and mortgage officers. That's news to me. What are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
funny. And then the second thing was, so you're what if they so a lot of people ask this all the time, right? Like, and this happens to our referral partners as well. You meet up with a lot of people, dude. If you don't have a process, just like everything else in life, dude, with your kids, with your family, with your significant other, in business, whatever, like if you don't have a process, it's just really, really, really difficult for you to have success long term. You might have success 1 month, 2 months, but consistently to have it for 10 years like you guys did, and sticking to the process. I think a lot of people, where they succeed is they succeed for about 60 days, 90 days, and they get away from the process. They forget doing the little things that
Mm,
differentiates them in the beginning, right? To where, like, and that's what happens in our industry, as you know, with the relationships in the mortgage and real estate world. Like, they do it for 6 months or 9 months or whatever that is, and then they get away from it because they just expect the loan officers to keep sending them business. Well, I would tell you, man, there's 100 insurance agents trying to get in front of this real estate agent and this loan officer anymore, right?
mhm.
So, are there some drips that you were doing then? Like, so every time they send you a referral, you're loving on them. Like, how do you keep that relationship? 'Cause
Mm.
that's a question everybody asks me. Yes, that's cool. I got them, but how do I keep them with me for the next 5, 10 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. And sometimes you don't. I think that you just have to
That's it.
expect that you're not going to be. No one retains 100% of their clients. You're not going to retain 100% of your referral partners. If you can retain 70, 80, 90% of them, that's fantastic. So,
Mm-hmm.
everyone likes to handle this differently. I was never a fan of a ton of automation, um, even though it's optimal and efficient and sometimes effective. It's For me, it wasn't as personal enough. A lot of these relationships, they work with you, yes, because you have what they need, and you can help their clients, and they have good testimonials, and you have a good process and everything. But they like you. No one's going to really work with you unless they really like
Bottom
you.
line.
And so for the reasons that they like you, I felt like you needed to be more personal. So what we did, whether it was ourselves when we were selling and networking, or it was outside sales reps who we had hired, or business development managers who had came on board, we were very clear about the metrics and KPIs that we wanted to focus on. And we really emphasized the lead measures, the actions that drove the outcomes we cared about. We did track outcomes, like we wanted to know how many policies were sold and premium and revenue and all that kind of stuff. But it was more of like just good to know and nice to know
Mm-hmm.
that everything is working on the front end. What we really focus in on is like what you can control, because the
Mm-hmm.
production on a week to week basis is reflective of months before and sometimes years before effort. And so one of the things that we liked are either outside sales reps, ourselves, or business development managers to track was the number of new referral partners that you were reaching out to ask for meetings on a weekly basis. Whether that was 1, 5, 10, 15, it was dependent on what was reasonable for the person. But if we weren't continually tracking on a week to week basis how many new requests for new referral partner meetings, we were always going to fall behind, and then we were going to get busy, and it'll take 2 months before you meet with a new referral partner. And the same thing we did with existing partners. So with our sort of top cream of the crop referral partners that fed us the most business, we're going to engage with them on a weekly basis. It wasn't necessarily in person. It could be in person. It could be on the phone. It could be a quick text. It could have nothing to do with business. It could just be a funny text, a meme, whatever it might be. Some form of engagement with our top referral partners on a week to week basis. Those that we wanted to maintain relationships with, it was more of a monthly touch point. We wanted to make sure that we stay in touch with them. After every single referral, they weren't getting custom gifts, but they were getting thank yous. And
Mm-hmm.
every single client that they referred in, the onboarding process was such that we asked that client to give a 5-star review to the referral partner as
Mm-hmm.
part of the onboarding template. It was like basically built into the template. If it wasn't for Cyrus Jaffery from ABC Mortgage, we would have never met you. Please take a minute to give a 5-star review if you had a great experience. Here's his link. And we would do that on the front end, and a lot of times on renewal as well. And that was a good value prop when you're meeting with a new referral partner. It's like, hey, is your insurance agent getting you 5-star reviews? If you have friends and family in that same email, if you have friends or family, your best friend, coworker, mother, whoever, who are looking for financing needs, buying a new house, whatever, please think of Cyrus in the coming weeks and months, to refer to him. So that's an aside, but essentially the KPIs that we track were going to be the nurturing, the number of touch points on a weekly basis to our existing network of referral partners, the number of new referral partner requested meetings that we had, the number of meetings that were actually held, how many meetings we actually had, and how many leads and referrals we received from that network. Those were all like kind of the lead and lag on the networking side. And if you stay consistent with those things, and it doesn't have to be significant. You meet with 2 people a week that you haven't worked with in the past. It's 100 people a year if you're consistent with it. You transition 20 of them, 30 of them into referral partners. You can't write that much business.
100%. That's crazy. No, I love that, man. I think one of that 5-star review for the mortgage team, that's pretty creative if you think about it. Because what's the value? Because at the end of the day, loan officers, real estate agents, man, what's in it for them, right? It's like, yeah, I like Matt, right? Great, that's cool. But like, what else are you doing to differentiate yourself versus somebody else coming in and doing something? That's pretty. And for a lot of people, man, if you have an agency, that's even like even if you have like 500 clients or 1,000 clients or whatever that math is on that, think about how many like mortgage requests you get like on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. That just comes to your office. People are like, well, I can't find mortgage officers. I'm like, you get all those requests, man. A loan officer is always attached when somebody's buying a house or refinancing. I'm like, you literally have loan officers reaching out to you on a daily basis through traffic, through organically calling your office for changes to mortgagee informations or whatever. It's like prime time to call those people and say, hey, like, I want to build a relationship with you. So those are some good stuff. My question to you is go ahead. I think you want to share.
I was going to say, Cyrus, on that one particular topic, what was extremely effective was just leveraging our current clients.
Mm-hmm.
And the question we would ask them, number of people you reach out to on a weekly, it could be 10 clients, 5 clients, 3 clients that you're reaching out to. They've been with you for 4 months. They've been with you for 4 years. Who cares? Reaching out to a certain number every week and saying, do you have a 10 out of 10 loan officer relationship? Like, do you have an absolute all-star that you would recommend? And if they said yes, cool, could you make an introduction to me? If they said no, cool, can I make an introduction to you from a 10 out of 10 that I have? And what that would allow us to do on a weekly basis is get more introductions to 10 out of 10s from clients, a little bit more accountable, a little bit of a warmer introduction, and then also feed a lot of our referral partners and loan officers and realtors introductions to prospective clients. Now, these weren't people that are going to buy tomorrow, but being able to send an email introduction saying, hey, Cyrus, I want to meet you. I want to introduce you to a great client of ours. They've been with us for 6 years, 4 years. He said that he didn't have a great relationship with a loan officer. You're the best of the best. I wanted to connect you because he's eventually going to buy again or move, and I want him to have your contact info. Man,
massive.
No insurance agent's doing that. And it's one thing that if people implement it would be really helpful.
That's massive. Business development. I know you mentioned that. So we track every one of our producers, I think, 13 of them. Each of them have a referral partner touch. So we track this on a 4-hour basis. Like everybody has certain, based on last year and what I want them to do, they have a referral partner touches that we track on a 4-hour basis and how many they have to touch base with. For you have the same thing because you track some of these things, but you said you have a business development. So was that the agent that was working with that person that's on a weekly basis touching base, or was it like a business development person that kind of is a brand for your agency that's doing that on a weekly basis to build the brand as a whole?
Yeah, we had an individual. She was phenomenal, but she would basically build relationships with new loan officers, realtors, and attorneys and drive those leads in-house to our inside sales team. Over time, she also nurtured a lot of the relationships that we had built that was almost to a scale perspective couldn't really manage. And so she was able to sort of manage those as well. And her metrics were very much, all driven on referrals, leads, and touches with engaged referral partners.
Beautiful. That I wanted to make sure because I want our guys. We have an inside salespeople. They don't even make cold calls. Honestly, my job, our leadership's job is to drive traffic inside of the organization. Organization then hands it off to the inside sales team. Inside sales team is basically in charge of nurturing that client, closes it, sends it to our onboarding team, they don't touch it. Our account managers, so that's kind of the flow. And I wasn't sure if you, because a lot of agencies have this, right? A lot of agencies, the agent is the one that's doing the onboarding, the 5-star review, it's just like you're kind of doing it all, if that makes sense. And when you get to a point to where you can afford a business development, which I will tell you, you can't afford not to have a business development if you want to grow to the level that you want to grow, kind of like, Matt's office potentially, man, you need to, how highly do you encourage getting a business development if you want to play in the relationship referral based environment, I guess?
Yeah, I think if it depends on your growth strategy. So if it's outside sales reps, I don't know if it's as necessary. So if it's like
Mm-hmm.
if you're an agency owner and you're looking to grow through outside sales reps who are going to do, be responsible for their own relationships, their own networking, marketing, and then handle their own sales, even if they have back office support, post
Mm-hmm.
sale onboarding, that whatnot, they're going to be the ones driving the traffic. Then I don't know if it's as necessary, obviously, because the top of the funnel is kind of covered for. But if you are going to have a component of your business be inside sales, or the entire business be
Mm-hmm.
inside sales, then absolutely long term you need to have that. I think the problem I've seen over the years is agency owners who hire for that role before they've done it successfully,
Mm-hmm.
because they're hoping that that person will be the catalyst for change as a cultural, significant sort of trigger. And what I've found is if the leader, founder, major driver isn't that person to really generate top of the funnel from networking and referral generated business, it's really hard to hire someone to like be that role effectively. It can happen. It has happened, but generally speaking, the energy and the culture of that networking and relationship building comes from the top. And so I think that you have to be sort of self-aware. If you are the principal, is this a direction that I should run in? If so, and I'm good at it, it's more about scaling me. It's more about getting me out of my own way and building capacity and having business development people underneath and on the team. But if it's not me and I'm not that type of role, I either need to hire outside sales reps and let them kind of build their own quasi business
Mm,
inside, or I need to just find a different way, a different strategy to grow, whether it's a different
beautiful.
type of lead gen and whatnot.
Cool. Um, just one or two more questions, man, and we'll be done with this because I know we're a little bit over time. So my last question to you before the last question is personalized world right now, man. It's obviously crazy market. I'm bullish, man. There's a lot of, I feel like, good stuff happening, and I feel like a lot of buzz is going around the market. A lot of people are talking about get into commercial and get into commercial and get into commercial, and personalized kind of almost becoming like a secondary. And we're primary 100%. We're still 100% bought in. I have my thoughts on this, but I'm curious on your thoughts in the personalized and where it's headed, and what should agents do that are more trying to be like, okay, I got to stop personalized. I got to go into commercial. Is that the right thing? Like, what's your
Mm.
thoughts on those?
Yeah, I think that there's still a ton of runway for well-run businesses in any space. I think I don't see a blockbuster to Netflix transition in personal lines, I guess is my like
Hmm.
direct way of saying I think there's still a ton of opportunity. Uh, just because the market's harder and it's a little bit more challenging to place business doesn't mean that that isn't a wonderful environment to write new business, because it might be more challenging. It might be a little bit more labor hours, but rates are going through the roof. There's never been a better time to actually engage with prospective clients that aren't currently working with you. So if you're effective at generating leads, this is the time to do it. I mean, this is the time to build new relationships, especially in the mortgage and real estate space. I think that, you know, with interest rates where they've been, and it's been hard for refi, it's been hard for new purchase, inventory's low. A lot of these top producers are doing 1/3 to 1/4 of what they normally do on an annual basis, and they're looking for any and every way to grow. And so this is a good time if they aren't being you know taken care of and touched by their current network. It's a good time to make inroads with new partners. I think anything and everything can change in the future, but I do think the personal line still has a good runway. I think for those who are like concerned and looking at commercial, if you have going back to what we started with, if you have the markets, you're halfway decent at like knowledgeable and skilled at selling, and you have a specific niche that you've identified, hell yeah, why not?
Mm.
If it can work for you, and all you need to do is sprinkle more fire on that, or sprinkle more gas on the fire to grow habitational or whatever you want to do in the commercial space, then I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think just making an exodus and jumping into commercial because you're concerned about personal isn't a strategy that wins long term. You have a very, very clear strategy on how you're going to break into commercial and why you're doing such a thing.
Makes sense. Yeah. Thanks for that feedback. So last question, man. This podcast used to be called Win the Day Podcast. And for a lot of people, man, there's a couple of things that they do on a daily basis that when they put their head on the pillow, they're like, man, that was a good day. As little as, man, a quality time, a kiss to your significant other, wife, husband, whatever. Little things, waking up in the morning for some people, man, it's win the day, right? With everything happening. What are 2 or 3 things, man, that you do on a daily basis where you consider your day one?
I love that question. That's my favorite question today. I have the first thing on the personal side that comes to mind, the first thing on the professional side. So on the personal side, if I can read to my kids before they go to bed, I think that's a major win. It's like one-on-one time or two-on-one time. It's intimate, it's where I can kind of feel how they're doing. I can connect with them. I can, that's going to be the win for me. If I can read to them every night, that's a huge win. Professional side, I don't know about you, but like my to do and task lists are typically endless. I feel like I'm always adding more than I'm actually
Mm-hmm.
crossing out. So I started doing this years ago. I look at a win as identifying the night before the top 3 things for the next day I need to get done. If I have 40 things on my to-do list and I get 20 of them done and I compare the ratio, I feel like a failure. But
Mm-hmm.
if I look at here are the 3 things that are the game changers that are going to drive impact and leverage for me, those are the ones I need to get done. And if I can get those 3 things done, even if they're the only 3 out of 40, it's a win for me. So that's how I've been able to kind of create wins in days that feel like an abyss of endless work.
That's beautiful, man. I would tell you, man, on the daughter thing. I used to read to my daughter, and now she's 7.5, and she doesn't invite me to her room to read to her, man. I miss those days. I read to my 5-year-old son and my 2-year-old son on a nightly basis. And they come and get me like, Dad, come on. My daughter used to do that, and she doesn't do that. So for people that are listening that are like, man, it's a beautiful time. Trust me, man. Take advantage of it on a daily basis because that's the one thing that I miss on a nightly basis. Is she's like, Dad, I don't want you to read to me. I can read myself now. I'm like, no, that was like our time, that was our thing, and that's not the case. They grow so fast, man. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you bringing that up. So
Yeah, it's a precious time. It's also one of the most challenging in terms of just like chaos left and right and emotional roller coasters because they're still developing that side of the brain. But it is such a wonderful moment, and it doesn't I'm not blind to it. I think every single father and mother I've talked to that have kids that are past the age of 6 or 7, they all say like they miss the ages of you know 2 to 5 in that range. The innocence and the love that they have for you that's unconditional without feeling at all, affected by the outside world really is a special moment.
yeah, I say it all the time, man. You don't know the true meaning of love until you have kids. So it's definitely pretty awesome thing. So hey, Matt, man, I appreciate you. Man, we could talk forever, but we got to end this podcast.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
we wanted. I think we went a little bit over, so I apologize for your time, man. And I thank you for being on here, man. I truly appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
All right, awesome.